Hi, I'm Chris Crane. I am the worldwide manager for the Vizio business out of Redmond, Washington, and I'm delighted to be here today to talk with Six Sigma, our partner in Brazil. Vizio Premium 2010 includes a new diagram type that's called business process modeling notation, and I won't spend a ton of time on it, but basically this is the international standard for process notation. BPMN is something that is used by companies globally now. It's becoming more and more used. That's why we've added it to Vizio. It's a Vizio Premium feature. But the concept here is that all process shapes have one meaning, and it means anybody across the company can understand it, and across companies can understand it. So if you think about a manufacturer and suppliers, if they're all using BPMN, then they can all understand what the processes mean. There's no confusion in the notation because a shape means something to one person and it means something different to someone else. If you hear about project management, I think there are two opportunities here. One, we have an update to the WBS modeler, which allows you to generate WBS models in Vizio from project files. There's also a great opportunity to bring EPM and process data together in SharePoint and into mashups. That's a partner opportunity, I think, but there's a good opportunity there. These are the early customers. We have case studies for all of these. A lot of them are process or BI. The interesting thing for you guys is we had about 20 RDP customers. They all came through the Vizio community. 16 of them ended up using SharePoint as well because of what Vizio brought. So the important thing I think for you guys to take away is that Vizio, I know it's not the main thing you sell, but Vizio can help you drive SharePoint. It is a differentiator. No other company has a Vizio without development. It can help differentiate our BI story. It can make it more visual. It helps you drive eCal and hence eCal Suite as well within the company. And it can help you drive SharePoint Server and get rid of those naked cals. All the functionality I've showed you will also be available in Union. So if you think about what is Vizio's cloud story, it's Union. It's the E3 SKU, the E4 SKU. It's the ones that include full SharePoint functionality and Office Pro Plus. We won't be part of those SKUs, if you've seen the BPOS SKUs yet. But you can attach Vizio, or you can use Vizio as another differentiator in our cloud story. SharePoint Workflow, Vizio, and Union. Vizio Services, Vizio, and Union. So don't forget that we can enhance and differentiate our cloud story as you're going out and telling that, because obviously there's huge pressure on you guys to go lead with that in the future, and it's a great opportunity. Let me just explain how we think about what the problem is we're solving. And you know this from your customers. Twofold. All customers have messy processes. One of the challenges customers have, your customers have, or all of our customers have when they try to improve process, is that the processes are owned by the business and IT owns the systems. And it's a little bit like Men and Women. Do you know that English book, Men are from Mars and Women are from Venus? It's a little bit like business analysts are from Mars and IT's from Venus or something. You know, it just doesn't work. And so the Vizio diagram, the SharePoint workflow diagram, then becomes that bridge to ensure that you have consistent communication, because the picture reduces the lack of clarity. I can look at each step and we can agree, yep, this is the process that we want. Okay? So we're trying to bridge that gap between the business side and IT in terms of process improvement. Okay? The other thing that's important, and I think you know this from being more knowledgeable about SharePoint than I am, is that we position this as solving human and document-centric workflow. Within business process, there's a spectrum of problems. 80 to 85% of business processes involve people and documents. We call those human and document-centric workflow. There's about 10 to 15% that's end-to-end system. It's more biz talk than SharePoint. So most processes this will work for. human and document-centric. This is things that SharePoint Workflow does really well. If they want to connect to SAP, this isn't the right system. We have partners that can do that, or BizTalk probably can do that. But the key when you sell this is to keep it focused on really all the things it can fix and easily without any coding, versus talking about what it can't do. So we can start in Vizio. Let me just shift gears here for the moment. So this is a very simple SharePoint workflow. You guys have probably seen the template here. How should you think about this? You should think about Vizio's limitations being driven by SharePoint Designer's limitations. So what does SharePoint, I'm telling you some of the warts because I'm trying to avoid you getting into trouble when you're talking to your customers. SharePoint Designer does not do loops in workflow. It doesn't do state workflows. Those need to go to Visual Studio. But there's lots of linear workflows that this stuff does really well for, okay? So you've got the complete template here, right? All the shapes. You've got the ease of use that I talked about before, where I can mouse over and I can add my Quick Shapes mini toolbar, right? I can drag my shapes up just like I showed you, so easy. But what's important here is that because we want to actually publish this, we want to execute it on SharePoint 2010, it needs to be logically constructed. And so I can click on the check diagram option up here in the process tab, and it gives me, it'll identify mistakes. Why is this important? Well, it's important, I think, for a couple of reasons. One is you got to have this run. It's got to work in SharePoint Designer. But if you think about it, it's an ease of use feature. Because if I'm creating SharePoint workflow and I make a mistake, this will show me, this will tell me what the problems are if I'm a newer user. Secondly, it's good for compliance, right? If your customers want to know that they validated their diagrams. Out of the box, we ship rules for flowcharts for SharePoint workflow and for a tool called Business Process Modeling Notation, which is sort of for heavy-duty process modeling. These workflow rules are also extensible. They're written in, they're in a set of XML rules. Your customers, you can have partners write customized rules. So if your customer wanted to validate their workflow not only against our rules that come out of the box, but some other business rules that they have, they could write those rules, a partner could write those rules, and they can validate against multiple rule sets. It's quite powerful. And just to give you an idea, Siemens over in Germany uses these rules as part of their sales process. They have one of their engineering teams that does parts for electric grids, for transmission of electricity over the grid. They actually use the CAD, they import all the parts in CAD, they drag them onto a canvas, they validate to make sure that it's a complete bill of materials for a system, because there's lots of parts. And once that's valid, then they use that to generate the order to the factory and the quote to the customer. So these rules don't have to be sort of processy. They can be anything that your customer wants to validate within a diagram type. Okay? So if I click on this, it's a little hard to see, but hopefully you can see over here that it's highlighted this spot right here, right? You can see it's red. And what it's telling me is that there's no no on this conditional shape. There's a yes but no no. So I'll add the no back in, and I'll revalidate, and now it's valid. So at this point, I can export to SharePoint Designer, right? What happens when I do this is that it generates a Vizio workflow interchange file, a VWI file, that can be read by SharePoint Designer and exported back to Vizio and read back into Vizio. So I won't export it, there's nothing to see. But the important story here is that you can round trip between Vizio and SharePoint Designer. So if you actually started in SharePoint Designer, you could bring it into Vizio, and it will generate the diagram for you. If you export from Vizio and you go to SharePoint Designer, here's the workflow, the same workflow. You'd finish it here. If I were to make a change to it, add a process step, then I can export back to Vizio, and that process step will be added. So again, you think about the conversation between business and IT. That's what we're trying to make as easy as possible. A critical thing here is before I publish, you want to make sure you check this box here, show workflow visualization on status page. That's what takes the Vizio diagram and it makes it your visualization in SharePoint without any coding. Customers really like this feature. That's an eCal feature, right? Because we're using Vizio services again, so that's an eCal feature. SharePoint Workflow is a great SharePoint server driver. We really think that every SharePoint server probably has some workflow associated with it. You can tell me more because you're really much closer to it than I am. And so we think that attaching Vizio Premium to SharePoint Server, just a few, is probably a great way for customers to start to get more value out of that SharePoint server.